for anyone who's ever seen it, sometimes it's an assessment. Some analyst will make an assessment, or analysts will make an assessment. And in these leaks, what you typically have is someone who read it and then leaks it to the media, giving it the spin and the angle they want it to have because they've got some purpose. Embarrass the administration, they were against the action, whatever it may be.
So basically what Rubio's talking about is the nature of intelligence reports, what they actually are. They're just papers written by analysts. They might be true, they might not be. Sometimes the intelligence might just be somebody entertaining a possibility. What if this situation happened? What if that situation happened? And one intelligence report's going to entertain this idea, another intelligence report is going to entertain that idea. And they might have even different possibilities, all the different possibilities of what might have taken place. And they analyze, what do we do if this happens? What about this or
It
this or
could
this
be
or this?
on
The
purpose
issue you have is
to
that when these
catch
reports are
someone.
leaked to the public, they maybe release this side, the what if that did not happen, and people say, oh, why was the military assessing this? The possibility of what if this happened? Well, they might leak that and say, well, the media and everyone else says this. They get experts to entertain the idea, they get comments, and they publish the article, and then it looks like what did not happen happened. To that point, you even have other countries that basically have reports on the possibility of war with basically every country on Earth. Canada would have intelligence analysts weighing what would happen if they went to war with the United States. And if that leaks to the public, which it has before, by the way, media then run with the headline, Canada planning for war with the United States. Are they? Well, they're entertaining the possibility of what they would do. Does it mean they're actually planning for it? No, absolutely not. When it comes to leaking these things selectively to the public, this is how individuals who behind the scenes know how the game works try to intentionally mislead the public by selectively leaking things like this to media, which then also give their own spin on it. And here's how that works. It's basically like the game telephone, right? Somebody writes a report, somebody entertains an idea, then somebody reads that report, right? Step 2, they characterize it however they want. They call up the media and say, hey, I have a juicy story for you. I just read an intelligence report and here's what it says. The journalist, hearing that from their anonymous source who saw the report, then characterizes it in however they want. And at each step of this, they're going to leave a little bit out, a little bit of context, a little bit of fact, a little bit of analysis, until you end up with what the public reads. And what the public reads is going to be a full-on mischaracterization of something that presents an entertained idea.
Disinformation.
And that's how you end up with news reports that allege something is like this is happening, when in fact it did not. Interesting that they're kind of giving a behind-the-scenes view of how these things actually work, because they don't often talk about this. Now, look, on another point related to the strikes on Iran, though, there was also a pushback against Trump from some members of Congress, and they were alleging Donald Trump did not properly go through Congress before launching the strikes. He didn't get our approval, and we're going to impeach him. So this led to yet another attempt to impeach President Donald Trump. Congress had to vote on it, and that attempt was just voted down in the House yet again. Epoch Times said this: the House rejected a resolution put forth by Representative Al Green, a Democrat from Texas, on June 24th to impeach President Donald Trump over the U.S. strikes on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities. It notes, interestingly, the motion to table the resolution was passed 344 to 79. That's a big deal, by the way. It means that Democrats and Republicans metaphorically held hands while they decided to not impeach the president. Now, it says the resolution accused Trump of bypassing Congress in launching the strikes on the Fordow and Efishan nuclear sites. It notes in a speech on the House floor, Green said this action falls under the categories of high crimes and misdemeanors, impeachable offenses, in other words, and said this, quote, President Trump failed to seek prior congressionally mandated authorization for the use of military force, he said, and adds, quote, congressional leaders were not appropriately briefed or notified of the attack plans, despite foreign leaders being given advance notice of the U.S. military action. It notes as well that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said on June 22nd that Congressional leaders were, in fact, notified after U.S. military planes left Iranian airspace. Green said that Trump violated the War Powers Clause, of which the Constitution states that only Congress has the power to declare war. The issue many have raised, America hasn't really declared war in a war since World War II. We did not declare war in Vietnam. We did not declare war in Iraq. We did not declare war in Afghanistan. We did not declare war in many actual wars, even though we call them wars, but there was no actual war declaration, meaning Congress did not really have to be involved in many of those. This does tie into constitutional arguments, which frankly both sides of the aisle in Congress have raised depending on who's president. Of course, when you had Obama launching strikes and so on, there were members of Republicans in Congress who wanted him to go through them. Same thing, of course, now that Trump is in office and he's carrying out things like this, targeted strikes, and members of Congress are saying, hey, the Constitution technically says you have to go through us. The issue, again, is that there are ways of going around that where you don't call wars wars. Now, what's really interesting, though, about the impeachment attempt, Democrats and Republicans voted against impeaching Trump, for the most part. Now, I mean, there were still 79 votes to impeach Trump. 79 still voted to impeach him, but the overwhelming majority voted not to. And so the issue, yet again, was maybe not as divisive as some might have thought it was. In other news, FBI Director Kash Patel is giving more details and information on an alleged CCP interference campaign in the U.S. elections in 2020. I'll be talking more about this after we come back from a quick break. FBI Director Kash Patel is alleging the Chinese Communist Party had a plot to interfere in the 2020 U.S. elections. And he handed over recently documents, an FBI report that claims the Chinese Communist Party was running this. And now he's explaining how that report was being hidden from the public. This is him on X. He said, in 2020, facts about CCP election interference were buried by FBI leadership for political convenience. Very strong statement. But he adds, thanks to the relentless oversight from Chuck Grassley, again, he's handed it over to Congress to Grassley, and the hard work of our FBI team, the truth is finally coming to light. He said, we're restoring trust through transparency, not politics. Now, a bit more details on this because it's slowly coming out. Just the News had more details. They also talk about what Kash and Dan Bongino are saying about the ongoing case. It says further in, Patel and Bongino said Tuesday they are committed to getting Grassley and the American public more evidence about the plot and the failure to fully investigate it. They said, quote, based on our continued review and production of FBI documents related to the CCP's plot to interfere in the 2020 U.S. presidential election, previous FBI leadership chose to play politics and withhold key information from the American people, exposing the weaponization of law enforcement for political purposes during the height of the 2020 election season, Patel and Bongino said in a statement given to Just the News. And they added this, thanks to the great oversight work of Chairman Grassley, the information, especially as the old FBI regime would say, covered up, will now be released to the public, meaning we will soon probably get to see it for ourselves. And adds, quote, this FBI leadership team, not the old one, will continue keeping our promise of aggressive transparency and working around the clock to fix the underlying problems to restore the FBI to the trusted institution the American people deserve. Now, on the claims that the Chinese Communist Party at least plotted to rig the 2020 elections, that's going to be big. This is the way the scheme worked, allegedly. Again, we haven't got the full details on it yet. The CCP was accused of having a plan where they wanted to take fraudulent identities, fake IDs, fake driver's licenses, and they wanted to send these fake driver's licenses en masse to agents in the United States, CCP agents. These agents would then use those fake driver's licenses to get fraudulent mail-in ballots and then vote in our election using these fake driver's licenses. Now, that would be massive. Importantly, they hid the report, they buried it, and interestingly, right after that, around the same time, it turned out that yes, Customs actually did intercept, coming from China, a large shipment of fake driver's licenses, corroborating the findings and the claims of the report, but they still hid it from the public for some reason. This is why this matters so much, though. This will not just impact the nature of the government over the last 4+ years. This will be a domino effect. This could undo many, many things. Even if this is shown to have not done the actual, let's say if it did not have the actual impact on the 2020 election, if it says that it was stopped, nothing happened, it was not rigged or whatever, even if it doesn't go that far, the finding, if reports like this were assessed yet hidden from the public, this could have a ripple effect on some of the key narratives. A lot of other important factors. And what could that mean? Well, that could include the entire narrative of Donald Trump's efforts to investigate election fraud. If there was probable concern that a foreign government was trying to rig the election, that would have necessitated additional steps to protect from such thing. And also this would really add a lot of controversy to other things. For example, the fact that many states had dueling electors, that the dueling electors were actually blocked from casting their votes in some states, that the dueling electors, some of them were even facing criminal charges for what was assessed in the past to be a normal and legal procedure.
Yeah.
This could actually affect the nature of the various Stop the Steal rallies. When Trump supporters, ahead of the 2020 election, were holding various rallies across the United States, trying to stop what they alleged was an attempt to steal the election. And it could also impact all of the other incidents that culminated with the incidents on January 6th, when Trump was holding an event and wanted evidence of election fraud to be shown to the public during, of course, the counting of the Electoral College votes. But, of course, that was disrupted when individuals raided the Capitol building while Trump was still speaking at the Ellipse. And then, of course, after he told people to go to the event that was scheduled there, they went there and they found all the signs had been torn down, all the no trespassing signs, the gates were opened, and individuals, of course, were then arrested, and the scandal went on. Why does this matter? This matters because this entire chain of events is what was used to frame the narrative against Donald Trump, that he basically did all this intentionally, that he believed that there was no election fraud, and he was just trying to overthrow democracy. If it turns out that his belief of election fraud was substantiated and then hidden, that will be a massive scandal. And if that turns out to be this, if it turns out there was evidence of an actual attempt, whether it happened or not, but an attempt to alter the outcome of the election, and this was hidden from the American people, hidden from Congress, that thread could be used to basically unwind all the other narratives. It is the thread that will be pulled on and make everything else fall to pieces. We're in uncharted territory with this, so we'll see what happens with it. But Kash Patel reports coming out saying that he might actually testify before Congress about what they've found. And when they do release the report, well, we will see what it says. Now, meanwhile, Trump is on the road yet again, and he just met with NATO members on his long-running push to get them to pay their fair share on defense. The NATO chair actually seemed very supportive of this shift. This is NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte during the recent NATO conference. Watch.
For too long, one ally, the United States, carried too much of the burden of that commitment. And that changes today. President Trump, dear Donald, you made this change possible. Your leadership on this has already produced $1 trillion in extra spending from European allies since 2016. And the decisions today will produce trillions more for our common defense to make us stronger and fairer by equalizing spending between America and America's allies.
Now, among Trump's criticisms of European powers is, well, they tend to rely on the United States for defense, as do many countries, let's be fair. And the result of that, American taxpayers have been shouldering the defense budgets of Europe, of Western Europe, and of Canada, by the way. But now it looks like that could be changing. Going forward, all NATO allies, with the exception of Spain for some reason, say they're going to start paying 5% of their GDP on defense. In other words, following the thing they agreed to do in the first place and then just never did for some reason. Why is that significant? Many would argue that, a lot of the, let's say, social programs in Europe are effectively subsidized because America shoulders a lot of bills for them. We shoulder their defense bill. Turns out we've been shouldering a lot of the costs of medication. And the problem you're going to have with Europe is if they have to pay 5% GDP on defense, they're going to have to cut funding elsewhere, unless they want to go into debt, which they're probably not going to do. They're going to have to cut spending elsewhere. That probably means shrinking the size of some of their governments or cutting government spending. Some have argued that American taxpayers, because we pay for defense and medical research, everything else,